drives me is a passion for justice. Politically, I'm a socialist. And I believe that in this world, we should collectively work at trying to create a more egalitarian society. Like Margaret Mead said, that, to be quite honest, it's only been a small group of committed people that have actually ever changed the world.
Yeah.
And so I really think that, we have the power to do something with our abilities, whatever gift God gave you, you can actually make a difference. I've always been interested in making films about children. My very, very first independent documentary was about young girls in 2000. I'm really more interested in the girl child. I'm a feminist. So I am actually interested in gender issues. Okay, what actually happened was that in 2005, I went to Zimbabwe to ask for permission to make a documentary called Return to Zimbabwe. I went to Zimbabwe when I was 3 years old, from South Africa as a refugee. So I was nurtured in Zimbabwe. And I wanted to make a film where I go back to Zimbabwe and I try to unpack Zimbabwe's journey through my eyes, from Rhodesia to Zimbabwe to post-colonialism. Yes. We interviewed children, and when you are interviewing kids, you have to go with your sixth sense. Because as a documentary filmmaker, you don't know how the story is going to unfold. You don't. So you have to think, okay, what are the children living on? How are they coping? What is going on? So eventually we came up with the kids that we came up with, and it ended up being about education. I mean, who would do a documentary on education? That seems really boring. But somehow it ended up being about that. And I think that it was interesting how it came out, because I think maybe that was the universe's intention, to throw that back to the leadership of Zimbabwe, that this was your legacy. But it's no longer your legacy anymore. Whether it is the ANC revolution, or whether it's ZANU-PF revolution, or whether it's Kwame Nkuruma's revolution, or you know what I'm trying to say, or whether it is Julius Nyerere. I am a child who grew up in the 70s. So that revolution, I feel, has betrayed me and a lot, and I try to unpack the dream deferred. So, Red Nose Week used that, a clip of that to raise money. And in terms of their graph, where most of the money was donated, it was donated during the time that Zimbabwe's Forgotten Children was being shown. And Red Nose Week raised, I think, more than 80 million last year, pounds.
Wow. 80 million pounds.
And all of this money is going to global charities. Yeah. So the same thing happened with Orphans of Nkandla. Elton John used a clip of Orphans of Nkandla for his charity ball.
Yes.
The auction.
Yeah.
And he raised almost £7 million in 2 years. And that money was used for ARVs. We don't want the West to interfere with our problems, our stuff. We need to sort out our problems, and that's very valid. And that's very fair. But when I look at the documentaries that I make, you raise so much money, and it's really ordinary people giving £10. Zimbabwe's Forgotten Children had 11,000 Facebook friends in 1 week. The one thing that I can only say to people is that you as people, or us as people, and our countries and as Africans, if we don't collectively become active, put our heads on the line, do something with our lives, Africa is going to be a perpetual mess. And if we think that we are going to wait for leadership to do stuff, although leadership is appointed, you know what I mean, to do stuff, to represent people, to make sure that there is service delivery, to make sure that this works. If we are going to wait for leadership, then I think that we are in serious trouble. So I don't know what people can do. I just think it's in your heart, what you choose to do with your life. It's simple things, how much are you paying your domestic worker? Are you making sure that your domestic worker's child is not going to end up as a domestic worker? If it's little things like that. It doesn't have to be as drastic as what I do, but truly speaking, how much are you paying your domestic worker? Do you know how many children she has? Do you know what kind of education her children are having? And are you extending yourself that little bit? So it's important that I do what I do because I'm passionate about it. And nobody ever said that actually socialists cannot wear Chanel No. 5. But at the same time, it's important for me to continue doing what I do because I have a child. What am I going to tell my child when I'm trying to raise a very conscious child, a child who must know their space in the world, a child who must claim their space in the sun, a child who knows that they have the ability to make a difference in this world. So now, if I don't do what I do or try to do something with my life, my child is going to ask me, so what did you do with your life? What difference did you make? Other than worrying, you know what I mean, whether your eye cream is getting finished. So yeah, I think that it starts with you. Be the change you want to see in the world. But it doesn't mean that you can't have fun. I think ultimately it's really about these children wanting someone to talk to them and wanting to be heard.
Yeah.
Toni Morrison said something that I've never forgotten, where she said, us as human beings, all we want is to be affirmed. And all a child wants when she walks into the room is for people's eyes to light up. See me, hear me, I'm here. Poor people, poor children, poor people are a nuisance in society in terms of how people perceive them. And a poor parent who's tired, a parent who can't put food on the table, a parent who's too ill, is most probably not going to have the energy all the time for her eyes to light up each time Kitumetse walks into the room. So yeah, I think that it's a very, very valid point. And I also like saying to people that if you choose in life to see the God in everybody, you will find the God in that person. Whether it's a serial rapist, I mean, this is really, really radical stuff.
Yes.
I'm a person who really, really believes that it's society that actually ends up determining how the human being, turns out. So I think you can, because we are all, we are all creations of God. So that if you choose to find the God in somebody, the person will respond to that. Because I also believe in the corrective justice system. I believe in that because I really believe that human beings can be helped. I came across these people who, by the way, they were repentative about what they had done, and they were trying to mend their ways. And in our group, it was very interesting how different human beings relate to those types of people. I was more open in engaging and trying to understand their backgrounds and trying to understand where they come from as people, and then trying to understand what made them do the things that they did. And certain people were revolted, were upset, where they think those people should be locked up and throw away the key, or let's bring the death penalty. I mean, those are all different views.
Yeah.
I believe that there is a God in everybody, and I believe in the restorative justice system. And I really, really believe that in this world, if we just took enough time to put in more resources in terms of people's basic needs, to give people decent wages, and not be in a world, because now we are in a super capitalist system now, whereby it's about squeezing people, it's about maximization of profits. Of course, we are going to create the world that we are creating now. I would really, really focus on early childhood development. South Africa's biggest problem at this point in time is that the education system is so bad for poor people and it's not getting better. And with a very uneducated populace, and when I say uneducated, I'm talking about serious stuff, where kids who are probably in standard 6 can't read and write, with all the resources that we have, you are not going to have a strong country. You are not going to have a strong economy. For instance, in this country, so many women who work, whether in factories or what domestic workers, who are really earning your low-end wages in the townships. There aren't any good nurseries that are supposed to be funded by government. Because we know it has been proven that a child's most crucial time is 0 to 5. So if you don't harness a child's potential,
yes,
you are not harnessing the country's wealth, the country's human resources, the country's future leadership. That's one. The second thing is that as a leader, because young people are just really, really, really important, I would instill a value of young people not wanting to wait for government, what government can do. The fantastic thing about having grown up in Zimbabwe and having been educated in Zimbabwe, somehow the education system geared you towards going out into the world. And when you go out into the world, you shine. You make a difference. The sky is your blackboard, and you can write whatever verse you need to write. And so it's no wonder Zimbabweans globally, my generation and those who are slightly older, they shine. Even the ones who are younger, because apart from a very good education system, you never grew up with this thing of government is going to do this for me. Focus on hard work, because actually hard work does pay off.
yeah,
Focus on less conspicuous consumerist stuff, because young people, if gold rusts, what should iron do? It's really about a value system that we need to start inculcating in terms of the way we live ourselves as people, as Africans, and then that will permeate, to our kids. It's also very difficult to raise a child. I'm raising a daughter who likes Barbie, and I'm battling with Barbie's image because it doesn't represent her image.
yeah,
And mommy is very politically conscious, and I worry about images around whiteness, about my child being exposed to white standards of beauty, because then they end up having conflicts within themselves at certain points. I worry about conspicuous consumerism. When my daughter wants something, even if I can afford it, I say no, because it's not about her having what she wants when she wants. I worry about certain things, and I want her to be confident, safe, strong in this world. But at the same time, South Africa is a misogynist society. So I worry when she becomes a teenager and she wants to go out and date, how late will she stay out in this society of ours? Is she going to be strong enough to navigate her way, in the world? So I'm concerned about quite a few things in terms of the world she is going to inhabit. I feel that she should have respect for everybody, whether it's the guy who sweeps the streets, When she meets him, she must greet him, look him in the eye with the same respect that she is going to give to, say, someone like Nelson Mandela.
Okay.
You know, and he wrote this poem for his child, and he talks about how when you walk amongst king and queens, and you also walk amongst the poor, but you keep your head and level above you at the same level, then you're a man, my child. My father told me that. Actually, it's funny, he was dying. He was on his dying bed. He had cancer. And he told me something I've never forgotten. He said to me, my child, because I came from England in 96 and I was getting tired. I couldn't get a job. I was getting pissed off. And then I thought, I'm going back to England. So I went to visit my father in the Transkei. I said, I can't deal with this. I'm going back. And then my father said to me, you know what? It's your choice. If you are going to go back, and if you are going to cry about the fact that you haven't had a job for 8 months, and us, your parents, we fought this unjust system all our lives, and our grandparents and everybody, and you can just give up in such a short space of time, go back, my child. But when you come back to South Africa 5-10 years later, and white people are still in power, and black people are still being treated badly, you have nobody but yourself to blame. And he said to me that you need to work and remember that the privileged education you've had or the access to the people you have, there was a reason. You need to work at uplifting the race. You need to work with poor people, because those are the people who are going to create you and destroy you. You are black, you're a woman, your people have a long way to go. And it's your job to work within those structures. And I've never forgotten that, because those are the people who make me, and those are the people tomorrow who are going to destroy me. I'm just blessed, man. I'm just one of those people that God just opened so many doors for me. I've met amazing people, but I look for the God in everybody. I honestly do. Xoliswa Sithole, who was my cousin, who, as I said to you, he was abducted. He was a political activist. He was a lawyer. In fact, he was the first doctor of laws in Southern Africa.
Wow.
That's how brilliant he was.
That's groundbreaking.
He had a the first thing that he did, when my mother wanted to take me to a multiracial school, he said, there's no child in this family who is going to go to a white school until this country is free. The second thing that he did, he didn't have a child, and so he took me everywhere. So I was immersed in the Shona culture. And cultures have amazing wisdoms. And he was a human rights activist. So there was I always grown up with this sense of fairness, justice. And that's not to say that I am wonderful. I'm not. I mess up. I can be dodgy at times, but I own up. I'm human. It's human to err.
Yeah.
So I was taken to a boarding school in the village. And that's when the Chimurenga War was very, very, very hot. So I was then part of witnessing the Chimurenga War in the rural area. And all the middle class kids I had grown up with didn't know what the blazes was going on. So I'd come back and I'd say, oh, no, we met the freedom fighters, this and that. So it gave me a certain sense of time, place, space, and a certain access that middle class kids did not have. You know what I mean? I explore in Child of the Revolution, as a child who was raised during a revolution, I explore the complexity of Zimbabwe, of colonialism, the far-reaching consequences of that, because I was in Zimbabwe during the time of colonialism. I explore Lancaster House Agreement, which was a negotiated settlement, which has also had far-reaching consequences to how Zimbabwe has played out. The same thing with South Africa. You had CODESA. And South Africa will play out in its own time, because that's some of these things are inevitable. It's part of processes. It's part of people trying to find autonomy, self-rule. If people have been exploited for the last 300 years, where they have been stripped of a sense of who they are. And I also explored the dichotomy and the duplicity of being African in a modern world, and the contradictions that we face, you know what I mean? Or our leadership, the contradictions that, our African leadership face, within the context of the modern world. But essentially, the film is about me looking at Zimbabwe through my eyes. And I look at the role of Zimbabwe, that Zimbabwe has played in the liberation of this country. I'm making a film that's complex, that does not throw away the baby, the bucket, and the water. I'm making a film that is a mirror for many other young people who have grown up in Africa or in the developing world. It could be South America, it could be Allende's child during the time when he was deposed, because he was also a child of the revolution, or she. And what happens? People go in with this goodwill. People are prepared to sacrifice their lives for countries. What happens? I'm trying to understand, where does it all go wrong? It's multifaceted. And I also question my place in that, my participation in that revolution, my complicity as a first generation successful Black person post-independence, whether it is Zimbabwe or whether it is here. My complicity in terms of perpetuating that. Because I think that we become complicit inadvertently, because also, this life of activism is really, really tiring. Also, it's really, 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 you have to be really, really strong. There's a part of me that's like, oh man, I'm just so tired of this, I would really like to fly business class, when I'm queuing up and when I'm going somewhere else. I'm resentful of the fact that I'm not, because I like nice things, and I'm in economy class and they close that curtain and they're already giving business class people champagne. And I'm like, hell no. But then the fantastic thing about documentaries is that, they bring you back to the source.
Yeah.
And they make you see through all of that bullshit, actually, at the end of the day. And you know what? If I die tomorrow, I don't want posterity to judge me for not having tried. So Child of the Revolution is really about a sense of betrayal, but also my complicity in that as well, because I've also benefited from the revolution. I mean, I think one of the reasons why I'm a successful filmmaker in this country is because, I know, I'm standing on the shoulders of giants. Millions of people died for me to be sitting where I am today. So, the revolution wasn't free, wasn't easy. And what has been my place in that? I wouldn't be where I am today professionally were it not be for the collaboration with True Vision. This company in England. They saw my very first documentary that I did called Shouting Silent in 2010, and it was about, my mother had died of HIV/AIDS. So I went around the country looking at young girls and how they were coping, those ones who had lost their mothers to HIV/AIDS. And they saw the documentary, and ever since, we've always created a partnership. And it's easy for them to access money in England. The budgets are decent. And not once have I ever been made to feel that I needed to show someone's vision. No. And I think that shows in my work. It's very much, who I am.
Yeah.
And so True Vision TV, that's Brian Shipley, Brian Woods and Deborah Shipley. Brian directs or I produce, and Jezza Newman, or Deborah directs and I produce. And also I work with the most talented camera woman who's South African, called Natalie Harhoff. She's the best there is, in the world. I wouldn't be where I am were it not for those people, in terms of supporting my vision continuously. Tell the story that you want to watch. People are always saying, make a documentary, this particular audience likes that. This, Make a film that you want to watch. If there are no films that you want to watch, you make that kind of film. The second thing is, don't think you're going to make money. You're not. It's a labor of love. It's documentaries. The third thing is, you really, what has also helped me in terms of being a documentary filmmaker for as long as I have been, is that I actually lead a very simple life. I have very low overheads. That way, I don't have to go and work and do work that I don't like because I need to put food on the table.
Okay.
I am not servicing a lifestyle. I am not servicing an expensive house. I'm not servicing an expensive car. I always tell young people, don't get caught up with living in these expensive areas. Then you have a huge rent and this. Nah, keep it simple. Because the first documentary that I made, I put my own money in. Child of the Revolution, I've put most of my money in. I'm failing to raise money for that film. And it happens. Richard Attenborough, when you read his book, Up to You Darlings, when he wanted to make Gandhi, he never made money. Sir Richard Attenborough, he didn't. He couldn't find money. Really? Do you know what I mean? And then he wanted to make a a film after that. And guess what? He had artwork that he was prepared to sell. I make documentaries from a space of response. I respond to a situation and I say, no, I need to tell that story. Okay. The issue of corrective rape, it was a response to what was happening to Black women living in townships in this country. I don't have money for that. No one has given me money for that. I've done the research. I want to go and shoot. I don't know if I'll have money. And I'll just have to say, Natalie, please, let's go and shoot. I'll pay you when I get the money. I took Natalie to Zimbabwe to shoot for me. I still haven't paid her. But you know what I mean? And when the money comes, I pay her. Okay. But it's also about knowing your time and place in history. You are bearing witness. I have never been driven by money. I've always been driven by something bigger. And maybe it's because I know that I am a very, very wealthy person. I just know I'm an incredibly wealthy person. And my sense of self-worth has never been determined by an address or a car. It's never been. Because I'm aware of my time and place. I was given an incredible sense of self growing up. And I've never been motivated by money. However, what I would really, really like is for me to find my angles. Everything by John Steinbeck.
Okay.
That's one. Toni Morrison.
Yeah.
Toni Morrison, The Bluest Eye. It's a gorgeous, gorgeous book.
Okay.
Everything by James Baldwin. I loved The Color Purple. And why I loved The Color Purple, I was in Zimbabwe. I was a 17-year-old girl, and I was trying to find my space in the sun. And when I read The Color Purple, I found my space in the sun. When I read Color Purple and Angela Davis, Woman, Class, and Race. I'm an Angela Davis girl.
Okay.
Big time. And they just brought it home to me. politically. I could continue being crazy. I could continue being independent. I didn't have to be one of those women who were going to toe the line. I felt that, yeah, I could just be myself and society could take it or they could leave it because I grew up in quite a conservative society. And those two books were very, very profound in giving me a very strong sense of self. I didn't have to marry. I just didn't have to do what I didn't want to do. And I could just actually live my life and and just be crazy and love my life and smoke weed if I wanted to smoke weed. And who needs judgment, So that's very important for women, especially because we live in a patriarchal society.
Yes.
And patriarchy is there to put women in their place. That's what it's there for. I like music. So I'm always thinking about music. My favorite musician is Stevie Wonder. When I'm in a shop, old as I am, when there's a nice song playing, I'll just start dancing. I don't care, whether I'm pushing a trolley.
Yeah.
And also, one of the things that I do, I talk to myself a lot. But as I'm getting older, I'm not shy even if people catch me speaking to myself. You bring joy into my eyes, but I also like village ghetto land. People are eating dog food now. Tell me, would you be happy if you were living in village ghetto land?
Sure.
Like when I was doing Child of the Revolution, it's been the most stressful project because I never had money. And I even almost lost my flat because of that. But I mean, I'll never do it again. But I just felt it was such an important story. I would listen to Stevie Wonder, Village Ghetto Land, Joy Inside My Tears. Yes, it's Joy Inside My Tears. And I would also listen to Bob Marley. I like Bob Marley a lot. And I would watch Fidel Castro's documentary because I adore Fidel Castro. I think that through his faults, he's one person who has lived his talk. And that's a very, very difficult order. He set about liberating Cuba. He did what he did. He's never been enticed by money. He just did what he did. For those who feel he's a dictator and for those who like him, there was a certain level of integrity with that type of leadership. And I would imagine it's very difficult to have integrity when you're a leader. But I also think that there are certain areas where the ANC has taken us back, especially with the gender issues of this country. And now the appointment of Justice Mogoeng, who believes that gays and lesbians can be cured, and at the same time, we are having this hideous crime that's being performed on black, mainly black lesbian women in the townships. And just the whole denial of people's human rights around the gay issue and having a chief justice who is so backward in his thinking, I think that has really, really taken us backwards big time. But nevertheless, it's a great country and there is a lot of good that the ANC has done that we can work on. You see, we haven't gotten to a stage whereby leadership understands that they are actually our civil servants, that they are living on taxpayers' money, that we elected them into office to do what they were elected for. And if they don't do that, we take them out.
Yeah.
Our democracy is still fairly young. We haven't gotten to that stage. And I think, and also another thing as well is that a lot of these guys are old and out of touch. Zimbabwe is a case in point. It's not gonna fly. They are too old. They must be all retired. What gives me hope is when I look at people who have fought to change things in this world. You look at someone like Yunus Mohammed, the guy who started the Grameen Bank.
Yes.
You look at the first person who created a social system. I always forget his name. He's a Canadian guy. He fought tooth and nail for people to get health care. And when you watch his autobiography, you know, when you read about Yunus Mohammed, when you look at great works of art, you only have to watch a film by someone called Deepa Mehta. Mm-hmm. You only have to watch a documentary called Ethiopia by Clifford Bestel, a Cape Town guy. I mean, when I saw Ethiopia, I said to myself, if ever I can make a film like that, it's okay, I can retire. But I don't have to go far. Just look at Nelson Mandela. Do you know what I'm trying to say? I spend a lot of time in the negative, but I'm actually an eternal optimist. Because I know that I am phenomenal. I was made in God's image and I was born to shine. And so when you light, you know, when you shine your light, you are giving other people permission to do the same. And you are unashamedly, you know what I mean, shining your light. So yes, I spend a lot of time in the negative. I get very depressed about it. But at the same time, there is something about, I see it as shining my light in that darkness. That is how I see it. And fortunately, the work that I have done has always garnered the most amazing response in terms of making sure that the people in the films are taken care of, raises money, raises awareness, which I don't really have anything to do with. But I guess that is where my wealth comes in. Exactly. To be able to have that kind of access and for people to give you that kind of access. And for you to be able to interpret it into images. It is shining a light on something. And to be able to wear Chanel number 5 every day. What more could I wish for? Okay. Who do I really love and admire? I think you should interview Yunus Mohammed. In terms of people who are, you know what? Someone I really have a lot of respect for is Trevor Manuel. I need to tell you this quickly. When I made the Zimbabwe's Forgotten Children, I was so afraid. I mean, I didn't make it when Jezza Newman and myself made the film. I was so afraid to what was going to happen to some of those people in the film. Okay? I was so scared to what was going to happen to the people in the film. The BBC had set aside a certain amount of money that should the people want to leave Zimbabwe, come here, you know, we could do that. Okay. But I needed to speak to the Minister of Home Affairs because Zimbabwe's Forgotten Children, as a documentary, if you were to make a film like that in the UK or in America, the government would actually help you to try and secure safety for those people. Because the last thing you want is to make a film and then you leave and then something happens to those people. Yes. So I didn't know how to get hold of them as a filmmaker. And I thought, oh God, they're going to think that this woman is just, you know, totally bonkers. So I bumped into Trevor Manuel in Woolies in Killarney. I introduced myself. I told him that I had made this documentary and I was scared and I needed the South African government to support me. Yeah. Should there be a need to evacuate people? Because the film was bigger than me, was bigger than a lot. You know, Trevor Manuel took my card and he said to me, I would like to see your documentary. His assistant or driver phoned me the following morning, came to pick up the documentary. I think he watched it with his staff or something like that. He got in touch with the DG of Home Affairs. The DG of Home Affairs phoned me. My government was ready to support me should I have wanted that support. Wow. That for me is, it's someone who is incredibly brilliant, incredibly amazing. But here I was, an ordinary person he met in, and he was just doing his civic duty. There are just so many people. Charlene Hunter Gold is very special. She's my mentor, top journalist, the first black woman to be accepted into a university in America after
Wow.
the famous Brown versus Board, case in the States where they allowed black people to go into white universities. And she's just done so much and incredibly generous, has opened up a lot of spaces for women, and I think that also someone you should interview is the guy who runs True Vision TV. They have done, Google them. They
Okay,
have done
yeah,
the
I'd like
most,
to.
they're the top documentary filmmakers in the world. But the amount of awareness and the money they raise for the films, and certain issues are taken to parliament, certain laws are changed because of their activism, they should be interviewed. And Stevie Wonder as well. Follow your bliss. Do what you love doing. The rest will follow. And don't chase after money. Don't chase it. The money will come. Don't chase after money. The money will come. Follow your bliss. Provide a good service. Follow your bliss. Follow your bliss. Because that bliss will give you courage to take the road less traveled, to walk into the unknown, and to still stand your ground. Because that bliss will give you the faith, because faith is about saying, this is what I want to do. I have no idea where it's going to take me, but I know it feels right. And courage, one of the most important virtues, and when you are in that space, when you are in that space with your oneness with God and following your bliss, everything else, will happen. And also the other thing as well that's very important is that every time when you want to do something, examine your intention. Intention is very important as to why you want to do what you want to do. And yeah, and also wallflowers never changed history. Strong people also have it rough, huh? Because you are not conforming. People are threatened by that. So you need to give your daughter a very strong sense of self in a very patriarchal society, and she must follow her bliss.
Thank you. I would like to say that I've been touched over the last hour and almost 20 minutes, I think, that we've been going. You have an incredible sense of wisdom that you've shared with us, and inner beauty that just shines here. And I could sit here and talk to you for another few hours, and just keep on pulling that from you. I can't say enough. We need more of you in South Africa, and you inspire me. The world is a better place because of you. Thank you.
Bye bye. Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye.